Welcome to the Pointy End. I'm Keith Sutherland. Today my guest is City of Greater Bendigo Mayor, Councillor Rod Fyffe. Welcome, Rod.
Thanks, Keith. Great to be with you.
Good. Now, it's been a little while since we've discussed a few things, but the first one I really wanted to talk about was been a lot of publicity about the citizens' jury. And it's something that it's an innovative idea, coming up with some things. Dennis and I talked about it this morning on our head-to-head program. And I see the state government are really pushing for this, and they're talking about coming up with ideas for Geelong when the new council is. But the first meeting happened this week, so tell us about it. How did that go?
The first meeting was more an introductory meeting where they were getting to know each other. They were listening to some presentations, and just getting their head around the whole concept of citizens' jury. We think it went really well. The feedback from the jury people that spoke to officers was that it was a very, very positive experience, and they're really looking forward to it and making that essential contribution.
Is it a really good cross-section? Because that's what Dennis and I talked about. It. We got the young to the old, everybody in
Yes.
between, and everyone's got a contribution to make, because if they don't make that contribution, it doesn't work, of course. But
right.
It sounds like you've obviously selected the people, or they've pretty much selected themselves. Is that the way it works?
To an extent, yes, but by the same token, it's run by New Democracy, a not-for-profit organisation that's in New South Wales, and they've been appointed by us to run the process. They did the selection process. There is some stratified random sampling, but the emphasis should be on random. I think the youngest is in their 20s, and it goes right through. So we did have 4 spaces set aside. We asked them to set 4 spaces aside for rural people, so that we got their influences or their ideas as well too. So that was basically about the only criteria that we asked of them, and they did all of the selection and so on like that. So really good. And being there and welcoming them on Saturday, there certainly appeared to be a good cross-section of people, just looking at people in the room, and very, very keen.
That's good. Now, Dennis and I have been talking about this on head-to-head, coming up with some ideas, because Bendigo is, whilst the election's just gone, but we need to have some half a dozen items to be able to present. Now, to me, when we talk about this sort of stuff, that we've got the citizens' jury, we've got an election coming up in October, yes. The annual 4-year election coming up. If I was a budding councillor, I would like to think that some of my ideas that I bring to the table may get me elected, but is there going to be a bit of a cross-conflict here? The citizens' jury do one thing, new pending councillors do another thing. What's going to happen? Because then it's going to be a mismatch of ideas. Council adopt this one from the jury, but the impending councillors adopt something and want to do something different. So how do we put it all together?
It's called democracy. and seriously, no, you're right. There will be quite a number of strands coming in. There'll be, because we've got to put together a council plan. So the new democracy or the citizens' jury will feed into that. And they will report to the old council plus the new council, and so it'll be up to the new council to decide what they're going to do with the work of the citizens' jury. But you're right, there will be people coming forward with ideas, and when you're in council, you work as a team. And if you don't get a seconder, your idea doesn't go anywhere. And if you don't get enough votes, your idea doesn't get up. But the important thing is that there are lots of ideas being fed in, so that people can discuss them, so that people can get inspiration, and it helps the community go forward. And that's what we're here for, is to make sure that our community keeps developing, keeps evolving into the best community in regional Australia, if not the best community in Australia. That's our aim.
Well, I hope you're right, because I noticed what you said. There was an increasing cynicism in the community about political process, including council. So that was, to quote your words there.
That's right, and there is, and people are thinking, we don't have any say. Every plan, every budget, and a lot of strategies all go out for community input, community consultation. And indeed, some have been very successful, like the health and wellbeing, where we had over 17,000 respondents to a survey. So it will be horses for courses. Some people will be more interested in things than others, but we encourage people to go to the website and go to the newspapers and this Pointy End and so on like that to get information, to get news and provide their input and their feedback.
Great. I hope as it doesn't stifle ideas for new councillors.
No,
I'll come back to that, councillor or new councillors anyway. But just a couple of other items I want to talk about is the funding for the Vahland drinking fountain. And I see we've got the square in place in Bull Street and ready to go,
right,
and you've got about $110,000 so far. So is that online about where you expected it to be? Obviously still like more money because that helps with the process.
We would like more money, but we've just been so appreciative of the fact that so many people have donated time, specialist people have donated time and others as well, donated particular goods and services, and it really is rolling along very nicely. And yes, we're on track to open the fountain 6 metres high, not quite as high as Marilyn, but it's very high, and certainly there has been a lot of specialist work in there. Like for example, the brackets for the lights had to be recast, and so that's specialist work, and the person is just, I think, donated that at cost, for example. Really great contributions of philanthropy, really appreciated by the citizens of Bendigo, I'm quite sure, once it goes up. But yes, and I think the donations officially close on the 15th of July, but if you want to make something, don't hesitate.
Great, that's good. Now the other one that you're really passionate about, the Writers' Festival is coming up next month. Now it's been an absolute coup, Julian Assange. How did that come about? How do we, I know Rosemary is a genius, and I know the committee and everybody else that are running it, but how does it come about? How do they sort of start the negotiations to get Julian Assange on side? Because to me, this is quite incredible. Tell me about it.
I'm not quite sure. I don't ask too many questions about those
it
sorts
happens.
of things.
That's all that matters.
I'm just so gobsmacked, just like you are, that so many good things happen. And I think there is an element there with the relationship with Latrobe that does bring about some of those things, like Waleed Ali, not Waleed Ali, the gentleman we had last year.
Oh yeah, I know the.
Anyway,
yeah, I can't think of his name either.
And no, because Robert Mann knew him quite well, and he was coming out to Australia for writers' festivals, we were able to use our connections with Latrobe, or Latrobe were able to use their connections to bring him. And he drew the biggest crowd of his tour here in Bendigo, and we're very proud of that. Just goes to show that if we provide the stuff, Bendigo people and surrounding people will come and really utilise the information, the ideas, and so on like that. So, very, very pleased with Julian Assange. Peter Singer, for example, probably the world's greatest philosopher at the moment, and Peter Doherty, Nobel laureate, are all coming and talking. Just absolutely brilliant.
I'll have to get Rosemary on the program, and we can talk some more and
too right.
Yep, and ask about it. Now, a couple of other things that have sort of cropped up over the last 12 months, and I put it to Craig Neiman 2 months ago, that is there something going on with council? We've lost a lot of directors.
Yeah.
We've really only got 2 now of the
right.
original ones. I know Craig said at the time it was great because he hadn't replaced people and time to restructure, time to reorganise those directorates, but it's probably not a good look to see most of them gone. 2/3 of them have gone in that period of 12 months. Is there something going on? And you'll tell me no. But I know there's gone for various reasons.
I will say yes, we are training them very well, and they're being snapped up, and indeed, yes, they are going on, many of them, on to better things and bigger things, which is really great.
But how can that happen? We are the centre of the universe here in Bendigo, so they can't get better than that.
Well, we can't have half a dozen CEOs, unfortunately, or fortunately.
Fair enough.
But many of them are going to, well, some of them have gone to jobs that they particularly wanted. Others have gone on to bigger things like Darren Fuzzer being CEO of Mount Alexander.
Yep.
Just fantastic for him and for them.
Yeah.
Yes, will be difficult to replace. Yes, we will be attracting a very big and a real quality field and posture of candidates. So, the appointment we did with Karen Ellis, she was a standout candidate, and she's made a massive contribution already here in Bendigo, and we look forward to the new directors doing exactly the same as well.
While we're talking about Darren Fuzzard's department, I noticed yesterday on Win News that there's quite a deal of angst, I dare say, with the compost waste bins, and they're saying there wasn't enough feedback, not enough time. The bins are arriving and a lot of people don't want them or don't like the idea of it. Just if you want to make a comment on that one.
Certainly. Look, the organic waste is, and when we talk about organic waste, we talk about not only the green waste from your garden, but also the food waste that so many of us throw out.
Yes, unfortunately.
And you're right, it is unfortunate, and we're collecting that because the contribution to methane, CO2 and all of that sort of stuff from those things is significant. And I don't know about you, but I want to leave a world to my grandchildren better than what I inherited. And I thought I inherited a pretty good world. So we do need to work on that. It will reduce the amount of rubbish going to landfill, and that is certainly what we want. And it will be reused as compost and so on like that. So why not use resources for other things rather than just throwing them into a hole and creating gas, creating problems, creating management issues, and well,
costing a lot of money too.
Absolutely. Every tonne will cost us a minimum of $64 that goes straight to the EPA levy.
Yep,
and
crazy.
We just keep adding.
Okay, something that is big, we talked about it before the election coming up. As I understand at the moment, the only person that has said that they're not standing, Councillor Lisa Raffel.
That's correct.
And everybody else, to my understanding, is probably going to stand. Is it time that we got some new councillors? I know that you said before that council's doing 99% of the things right, but is it time for a bit of a change? Because a few of you have been there for a while. I know you have mentioned last time in the program that Rod's going to stay around again, and that's fine because we need a nucleus of the existing councillors because you've got to have a continuity all the way through. But is it time for new people? Because we've interviewed here on Pointy M several potential candidates for council. One that came to mind, the last one that I did was Brenton Johnson. Fine young man that's standing and he's got some great creative ideas and he's into clouds, he's into all sorts of stuff. But is it time for a bit of a change with council? Because a few have been there for a while.
Oh, look,
a loaded question.
It is a loaded question, but by the same token, it'll elicit an honest response from me, and I'll say, look, it'll be up to the voters whether they think that the councillors that they want are the ones that are there now or new people. I think that there's always going to be evolution. We will listen to people. As we talked about earlier on, we've got the citizens' jury feeding into it. We've got other ideas feeding into it, and certainly some of the potential candidates have offered their responses to submissions on the budget and the plan. So, and when we think about it, we go out to ward meetings, we get ideas from those, and yes, it will be up to the voters whether it's a new council and who will be there and who will not be there. Nevertheless, I do think anyone who is standing needs to have good ideas, and that is very important.
As you said, it's democracy and it will be up to the voters. But in many ways, like if I stood against Rod Fyffe, I'd get beat every time, hands down, because it comes down because you're a well-known figure, popularity, but new people, it would be hard to come up against yourself and others that have been there for quite a while and still making a terrific contribution. But it would be hard while people, so no one's likely to beat Rod Fyffe. There's no question about that.
And
I'm not trying to be clever because
no,
you're sitting here, but that's just the way the system works.
You're right. We do, incumbent councillors do have an advantage, but they also have a disadvantage too of being tarred with the decisions of that council. And so from that point of view, look, we can think back over the years where a number of councillors lost their positions because of what they did or didn't do. And yeah, people are a bit more discerning than what we probably give them credit for. And I never underestimate a voter.
Rod, finally, what's in store for you? More council, more of the same things, because you're still loving and still a young man and got plenty of time to do all these sorts of things.
You're right, now that I've retired, I do have that extra time, but I do enjoy it. I do enjoy making a contribution to the community and taking on board what people want and helping them achieve their ambitions as well too. And it really is something that I hope that the voters will continue to put me back in.
Well, Rod, as always, thank you for appearing on the Pointy End. It's always great to you make yourself available to Bendigo IPTV to discuss the issues, and it's always good to have you on board and listen to your viewpoints.
And it's great that you people do it. We really, really appreciate it because you do get out a point of view which is different to the normal points of view. Well done.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.